in 5 to 10 years, technology is progressing so rapidly that we may be able to see a future where a construction site can be almost entirely automated, where the crane knows exactly what to place where, and it's doing so without any human intervention. How we stand out is by being able to innovate and show them that we can think outside the box. Clients see that we have worked on this innovative product and they choose us over similarly skilled architects. That's where the future is going. Everything's going to be automated, and we need to be the first ones to sort of, say, here's a problem and here's a solution that we see fit.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Beyond Product podcast, the podcast where we are exploring technical products, but also the value that are creating for people. Today, our guest is Sadi Wali. Sadi is a computational design specialist at WZMH Architects, releasing several software solutions aimed at construction and design in the building industry. Welcome to the show, Sadi.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Same here. And we should tell everyone we're both in Toronto, so I'm excited to bring another fellow Torontonian to the show. I think the background that you have over there shows a sliver of the CN Tower just behind you. And yes, right there. And I've been to your office, so this is actually the conference room where you have that amazing view of the city, right?
That's right. That's our background right there. It's like I'm in the office, but I'm not.
and you also told me that WZMH Architects actually were the firm that designed CN Tower, right?
That's right. Yes, that was over 60 years ago. It's one of our most notable projects, and since then we've have essentially a project in every major Canadian city and internationally as well.
Very cool. For everyone internationally that have not visited Toronto, I'm sure you are familiar with our skyline. CN Tower is the tallest building there. And for many, many years, it was actually the tallest building in the world. When they built it, of course. But I remember it had this designation for 20 or 30 years, if not more.
Right now, there's some projects in the Middle East that are taken over, but it was there for a while.
Right. So that's all very cool. Architecture is really, really cool. We won't have cities without that. But here the products we're interested in the podcast is more technical products or software products, and that's where we're here to talk about. So tell us, first of all, before we delve into what does architect firm has to do with software development? That's another interesting thing to explore there. Tell us more first about yourself.
Sure, yeah. So thank you, first of all, for the introduction. I think you've covered most of what I do at WZMH. Personally, a little bit about me is I did my undergrad in architecture at the University of Toronto. And even before then, I did 2 years of computer science at University of Toronto as well. And I've always been passionate about software, about IoT, technology, and that really helps me get to where I am at the WZMH in this position where I'm really lucky to be able to apply my passions for technology and software and integrate it into architecture. So, yeah.
Thinking about your job title, computational design specialist. So what does that mean exactly? I mean, tell me in your own words for other people that might be interested to get into a place where they see themselves not just in a software company or not just in an architectural company, but in somewhere that merge both of them. Is this unique to architecture world, or is that position also is in other places? And just a bit more about the value that you're creating.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure if the computational design specialist position is in other industries, but I know that it's sort of a new but very common position in architecture firms. Computational designer is another term for it. But the main thing is being able to use computation in our design work. So we do anything from environmental analysis to parametric design, being able to very efficiently use technology to create our designs. And in my position, what I do a lot of is work on the R&D side of things at WZMH through the various software and hardware projects that we work on, but also on the side, like essentially this was supposed to be my job, but I do like environmental studies, sunlight analysis, life cycle assessment. So we're using technology and a lot of data to make better buildings that last longer and are more sustainable. And that's where computation comes in, and that's
I see.
essentially my role.
I must tell you a little secret. I don't know if I mentioned it to you before, but when I was probably around 10 years old, I decided I'm going to be an architect. And until probably I graduated high school, that was the goal. That was the direction where I was going. And then all of a sudden, I became a software developer. I won't get into that story, but I was always really curious about these two disciplines or these two jobs, or way of living for some of us, because both of them are very creative. You create software, to solve a problem to people. You design a building to solve a problem to people. And
Exactly.
both of them are creative processes, right?
Essentially, you're always problem solving, and that's something I enjoyed since I was a kid, like since I was very young. And in both of these areas, you're really finding challenges and innovating in ways to always improve upon the previous, what's done before. And you're in the process, you're leaving a lasting impression on people and on industries.
I agree with you about solving a problem and that creative process of creating something from nothing. So to me, it actually makes a lot of sense that software development and software products are there is some synergy between them to architecture. But I also know that construction world of building buildings, there is, which is maybe a bit after the design of the architecture work that your firm is doing, there is a bit of struggling to innovate and to create new solutions for old problems. So that's where a segue to our next to my next questions about the products you guys are building, because you've shown me one of those products and it's actually tapping into that area. So I'll let you explain first. Some of the products that you guys are building.
Yeah, definitely. As you may know, that the construction industry is amongst one of the least automated industries out there. And what we are trying to do with one of our projects is not to, just go out there the next day and automate cranes and really push that right away, but we're trying to offer some sort of, just to get people to embrace technology in the industry. And the way we're doing this is by using through a product called .on. So the way this works is essentially it's augmenting a camera feed with information about measurements. So we're tracking an object, we're seeing where it needs to go, what the target is, how high it is, how far it is. And we're also putting in details like wind speed, especially useful for crane operators who are moving these heavy objects. And this, showing up on a screen will help crane operators make better judgments about what they're moving with the information they have. So that's something we're really excited about. It's very simple to implement. All we have is a camera, a screen, and some markers that we place on these objects that get moved. And as long as the camera sees this marker, we can sort of communicate the information to the crane operators who's maybe somewhere far away. And something we are really excited about is in the future, this could be automated process, like the data we're collecting right now of how things are moving in the construction industry allows us to later improve processes and improve ways to sort of allow for more safer, more efficient and accurate installations in the construction site.
Yeah, and that's actually a very exciting thing for me to see. I've seen a demo of that, working demo actually, with small parts, not very big, construction parts. But the cool thing about it was how taking different technologies that exist out there and putting together that solution for a problem. But let's go a bit backwards to see how did you even got to to that problem? What is the problem we were trying to solve over there, and how did you find that problem?
Definitely. So this project actually started way before. It sort of came up as a branch to another project we were working on. And sometimes this is what happens in the lab, which we call Sparkbird Lab, which is an R&D division at WZMH Architects. We were working on a project called SpeedStack. This is a building project, a modular building project for Ukraine, actually. So we were envisioning this way to rebuild the buildings that were damaged in Ukraine very quickly and efficiently.
I see.
So we have these modular housing units, and they sort of stack on top of each other. They connect at very particular, very precise points. And all we need is to essentially stack those objects and just like screw them together to assemble it. And a problem we were dealing with is, these measurements have to be very precise. These placements have to be very precise. And, labor there's sometimes a labor shortage. Sometimes there's safety concerns with things lining up. So we were wondering, what if we could, using a camera, measure the distance between where the next block needs to go and where its target is. And through that process, we developed DotOn, which started with these red dots, which we could track with a camera and just measure between them. But now we moved on to markers, which carry on more information, but also allow us to sort of track and measure distances between where objects are. So essentially, that's where it came from. And we're really excited to move this forward to automating, and also the most useful industry that we've sort of looked at is the construction industry. And it's for crane operators, it's for forklift operators, any sort of machinery or anything requiring precise movement and measurement.
That's really interesting, because it's so true that products or the ideations for products or the inspiration for products, it's not always coming from one specific areas that we always work on. It could be something else completely. Well, in this case, not completely else, but you were working on one problem, and then you all of a sudden got a new problem to solve. And from that, you were like, okay, so where is the technology out there? What can we do to build that? How do you take that to an actual, working product?
So we were lucky enough to already have sort of some people in the firm. This was before my time, but I came on soon after, who were well versed with some programming. They had some programming skills, and we sort of quickly were able to get a brief but a very quick understanding of how to start this process and build some very rough demos using just an iPhone. Sometimes we use the built-in. I think the iPhones have a built-in AR tracking library, which allows us developers to very quickly track and measure objects. But we moved on and we sort of collaborated with a software company in Ukraine, who we discovered through several projects before. And they came up to us and said, hey, we can build this for you. We have the skills, we have what you need. And we just told them, we communicated what we wanted this to look like. And they sort of very quickly wrote this for us. And it's a simple product. It's essentially using computer vision. So just a camera, and it's detecting these markers, but we're taking this to the next level by implementing it in construction.
Right. And that's is that where you are right now, the stages of the product, or did you already try it out in the field with some construction companies?
So we're actually going there next. Right now we have a working demo that we can test in our offices, but in the real world, things may be different. Lighting conditions, distances are much greater. So that's something we're working towards, is getting it to be tested in the real world.
But we know it's not an easy thing to bring a product to the market. There is a lot of things that needs to happen over there. So is there one area of focus that you're planning to focus that? You mentioned construction, but there is also a lot of many different usages that this product can become. Is your focus on construction only right now?
So in the beginning, our focus was entirely construction. That's where we sort of saw this product being most useful and being most effective. But throughout the times and throughout our conversations with you, when you came to see the product in our office, we sort of came up with some new work use cases. For example, in auditing sprinkler heads. So for fire inspections, we can sort of, if we detect these sprinkler heads in the camera, we can measure distances between them and ensure that they comply with the spec. That's something we didn't consider earlier, but that just as the same, we can always think about new ways to use this technology. It's very simple. It's just a camera and some tracking frameworks that are already in place.
Right.
But right now we're focusing our efforts on construction. But I think what we need to do, and something we're working on, is seeing how we can really get it to the market as quickly as possible. And that could be maybe not in construction, but maybe in warehouses for forklift operators, just to give them something to test out, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something we're working on.
So there are different scales where this technology can work at. Construction seems to be like, well, it depends on the size of the project, but it could be a very large scale with huge cranes, and sometimes they don't see each other, like the crane operator and the person that help them navigate where they have to put the things that they have to put.
Right now, sometimes a crane operator is in one side of the building and they're moving something across, and the way it works right now is they have radios on the ground, and there's several people involved in this simple move operation from point A to point B. So having a camera, somewhere else, maybe on a drone, that could transfer that information to the crane operator could be very useful in that for them. And if that somehow eliminates one or two people on site, we have a safer site, a more efficient site going forward.
Yeah. Now, there is another product that your team is working on called Parrot. Tell us a bit about that.
Definitely. Yeah. So Parrot is on the now going to the design phase. This is before construction. This is a purely software project, and we're very excited about this. A problem, as architects, we come across a lot of these problems and we try to find solutions for them, which is where we get a lot of our ideas from. So Dot-On came from one of those projects. And now Parrot is something that we've encountered would help us in the case with client design standards. So whenever an architect works with a large client, they have multiple branches, for example, let's say it's a bank or a retail shop, they sometimes have these binders, these 100-page documents, PDFs right now, that just talk about the carpet, the color, the paint color, the types of furniture, the rooms. And it's all contained in a PDF, which architects have to flip through and familiarize themselves with before they do any work on their projects. And it's a lengthy process, very expensive and time-consuming process. And what we are trying to do with Parrot is translate that PDF into a more intuitive spatial application that designers can just click through. They can upload, the client can upload their standards, their furniture elements, everything into one app, and then designers can sort of click through and see details about that. So we're very excited about this application that we're developing right now. And we have some clients that are also very excited. We were able to show little bits and pieces of it to some of our clients who are excited to start using this, and they anticipate this helping things be more efficient. And that's where the value is, just saving time and making processes more efficient with technology.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the value, because that's one of the things we're trying to explore in this podcast. So the outcome that you're trying to get out over there is that time efficiency for people, and what they are going to save in time, but also be able to find information they need to find much better way and much more modern way, I would say. So bring them into the 21st century in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. And technology, that's where the future is going. Everything's going to be automated, and we need to be the first ones to sort of, say, here's a problem and here's a solution that we see fit.
Are you building this product as just for your firm, or is it like a SaaS product that other firms or anyone designing a branch of a store or something like that will be able to use for their needs?
Issue clients have with these design standards is, once an architect or an interior designer learns these standards, it's very hard for the client to bring on a new architect or a new interior designer to gather competitive quotes, because they have to learn this process all over. So Parrot allows us to learn standards of other clients, but it really allows the clients to have the freedom to bring in any more architects or interior designers they see fit. So in
I
some
see.
ways, if we are working with a client and they like us, we give it to them. We do anticipate that maybe they can now bring in another client, but we also see this as a value for us because it saves us time. And the more people have it, the more clients that have this product, I feel like in the end of VIP, we will see more value to us as well, because there will be clients who are more willing to open up their design sort of to other architects and interior designers and be confident
Yeah,
that they will be able to understand their design standards.
that's a very interesting aspect. When we were explaining it originally, I thought it's more like I try to compare it in my head to a UX UI design system where a designer will define this is how we have to build the software. But now I see it's much more than that. It's not just this is how we're building. This is our standard for building an office space or a branch space or whatever it is. But it's also allowing them to open up requests for proposals, if you may, for other firms to build, based on their standards in a much faster way and cheaper way for them, so they can get more competition from those proposals, right?
We're adding value to our clients in this way, and that's where that's the most important thing, like making sure our clients are happy.
Absolutely. One of the things that you mentioned, which is really interesting, is that process from a service that you provide to trying to build something internally to improve your service, and then taking that and commercializing this into a product that also other people that provide similar service will be able to use, and other clients that have their standards will be able to use as well. So how did you, and I've seen this process, in the past with other service companies. How did you get into that process? Tell me a bit more about your behind the scenes of, when the company decided to go that route.
When we decided that this is the application we had, it was working, and we needed a new application that was much better, that was easier to bring in new clients with. But it's always something that we first create internally, and we take it as far as we are able to, and then we collaborate and we show this to other people, and they're very interested, and then we bring on collaborators. And sometimes the idea we develop with the collaborators, but sometimes we just pass it off so that they can use their expertise. We've done our part, we've done the design, we've done the conceptual work, we've done the design work of the idea, the pitch, and then we just give it to someone who's able to take it further. And there's a point at which we realize that we don't have the skills to move this forward. And that's like every project has that stage, but we try to get as much into the product before it gets to that stage, and we're building the R&D for division at WZMH just to be able to do more internally and really innovate the best we can.
Yeah. And one thing that you didn't mention, but you have done as well, is the validation. So you really validated there is a problem. It's a real problem. And you validated that with some type of a technical solution, you will create value and help users. The problem then is really scaling. How do you scale that from just that one solution that you created internally to create a better solution and also create value to more people? So that's really cool, because validation of a product is one of those things that many people don't realize that they do when they do it, or they skip doing it. And then when you skip doing something, you may not validate that there is a problem. You solve something that no one really wants. So I think that it's important to highlight that you've done it by the fact that you have that process internal, which is really cool. I'm always interested about measuring value. So we talked about the objectives of creating that value to the users. With any of those products, Doton or Parrot, how do you come with the ideas of what the success means to you, so therefore you will be able to know what to measure?
Well, of course, success and value in a product is there can be measured monetarily. Like if we have an idea and we create it and we build it, we see interest, we sell this idea, we sell the product, we bring in the monetary amount to really show that this product is valuable, people want it, people need it. But at the same time, we also find value in creating a product and then sort of advertising it or bringing it out to the world, and then having when we do an RFP, a request for proposal, clients see that we have worked on this innovative product and they choose us over similarly skilled architects. So in a way, this the value sometimes may not be direct, but people like to see, clients like to see that we as an architecture firm, we innovate, because that's where we have to go, like in the current market, a lot of these architecture firms, these large ones, are very much all the same. They can do the same level of work relatively for the same price. How we stand out is by being able to innovate and show them that we can, think outside the box as an architecture firm and really do these really interesting, innovative things for not only to create our process, to make our process more efficient, but to, innovate for the client, to make the client happier and their work much more efficient.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because it shows that you have different mindset than the competition. So that puts you in that competitive edge there. And that mindset comes from creativity that is not just about buildings and engineering, but it's also about the processes to get there, to build the building, or to get to a place where you can improve the process and innovate on that process.
And also at the same time, we capture talent from like just students that can, see that this architecture firm here, they put emphasis, they put focus on innovation, and that's really exciting. And it's almost refreshing to see when we just come out of university, we have this vast amount of knowledge, not only in just doing designs or doing architecture, but also in the various technologies that we use throughout our studies, our education. And we're able to sort of apply it, as a part of our work, and really keep our minds fresh at the same time.
I see. So I see how this is leading itself towards innovation and what can be done else with technology. So it's not just about using existing technology that someone else might have developed for these purposes, but also how can we push it farther, right? So I see how that makes sense for creating more value than just with what we have.
Yeah, we definitely use a lot of solutions that have already been implemented by somebody else. For example, we use this software called Ladybug, which is a free to use software in this other software use called Rhino. And it allows us to do very accurate sunlight analysis. So we know exactly what the shadow conditions will look like on the ground before we even build anything. So simulation is a big thing in architecture, and the more we do, the better we understand about what our building will actually behave like before we even build it, and that's incredibly valuable to our clients and also to us, so that we can do as much simulation as we can before we build it, so that our the build end product is as good as it can be.
Yeah, that's a very cool place to be, I'm sure. What do you see the future is like for your products, for .on or for Parrot? Like if you are now 5 or 10 years from now, where do you see it? What's the vision?
Well, one thing I can say that I'm very excited for already is where .on can go. I mentioned that right now we just want to be able to provide some information to people on site, just using a camera, just some extra information. But in the future, in 5 to 10 years, technology is progressing so rapidly that we may be able to see a future where a construction site can be almost entirely automated, where a crane knows exactly what to place where, and it's doing so without any human intervention, or maybe that human component is separated from that construction site somewhere far away. And that's really exciting because it means that buildings will be built much faster, much more efficiently, and things will be much safer in the end. So that's something I'm really excited for in terms of .on, the hardware and technology side of things. For Parrot, I'm really excited to really see this being used in more and more clients, not just our clients, but really in the industry itself. And I think this is very valuable. And once people get to see how easy it is to use and how much value it adds to their workflow, I'm sure they will be very interested in engaging with us to get it for themselves. So these two things I'm very excited for in the future, just to see where it goes.
That does sound exciting. With .on, I hope that no one in the construction, construction workers or the union will listen to this episode, because maybe they will not like it. But I'm sure that this is all about really safety.
It's also a safety thing, so they can always. It's not like we're removing too many jobs right now, and of course there are different ways to do that job. So I anticipate this being much safer and a natural progression to where we're going with construction in general.
Yeah, and to me, it's about doing the same job, but doing it smarter, more efficient,
exactly,
and really involve them in part of the process of how do we get there to a way that will not necessarily take their job, but will make them better at what they do, right? Like anything else these days, I believe. Standardizing an industry is not an easy thing to do at all. When I hear you talking, I'm thinking like, maybe there should be a standard there for, and maybe there is one, but maybe it's all hidden inside the PDFs and it's hard to get to it. And this is making it much more available, and it becomes easier to get to that standard. But maybe also the way to share the information can become its own standard as well. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, I already see the PDFs are very helpful because they're interactive, and they're a progression from the olden days where we had binders, just paper. They were just paper and they're heavy and they get lost. Yeah. And the PDFs made it so that it's much easier to navigate. But the issue with the PDFs is, whenever there's an update to the standard, you have to really issue a new PDF or change some pages there. So I see the natural progression of the PDF being this app where everything is sort of modularized and they're objects. So if an update needs to take place, it's done within the app and it's automatically shared with anybody who's involved in the design. So that's where I see the next progression of this standards going. And the PDFs were helpful, but definitely there needs to be some sort of intuitive, easy to use app that is the next logical step.
Right. Excellent. Perfect. So one of the last things we usually ask our guests in the show is about other products. We always love to talk about our products, and we're very passionate about this. But if you would want to give a shout out to any one product out there, what would that be and why?
I thought about this a bit, and I think the product I would, it's an app. It's on the iPhone, but I believe there's an Android version of this app as well. It's called Polycam, so Polycam, and essentially it's a laser scanning app that can use the LiDAR module inside an iPhone to automatically sort of create a 3D model of something that's in reality. So you just hold your camera up and you walk around this object, and it automatically creates a 3D model. And something we sort of were excited about and we use at WZMH through Sparkbird is a way to use this to do interior scans of large buildings. And normally this is done with expensive, heavy scanners that cost upwards of $80,000. But we sort of use this quick and rough method of using just an iPhone to go around and look at every nook and cranny of a room, create a Revit model that represents the space. So Polycam is very exciting. It's free. It's free to use. There are some paid features, but it's really exciting to see where technology has come. We have LiDAR in our phones now. And before that, it was self-driving cars as well. But it's exciting to see what other sensors we use.
Can you explain to our audience that are not familiar with what LiDAR is all about?
Essentially, it's like a laser, but it uses lasers to scan scan the world, and it creates a depth map. So it creates a 3D map of your surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
And self-driving cars use it to essentially navigate spaces, like they can tell what's behind them and beside them. And
Right.
we're using it in our phones to essentially get a 3D model of the interior of a room, like the walls.
Mm-hmm. It does sound like a very helpful technology. I might have used it myself, not polycam, but LiDAR technology. I would think that, facial recognition maybe has some of it. I don't know if it does a 3D on facial recognition or it's a flat one, but that will be an interesting one. And maybe there is something that I've used it on. I don't think so, but it's always exciting to learn about new technology available. And then based on that, again, what can we push it forward on the problems we're trying to solve? So we have some jobs to be done that we need to solve. And then maybe that new technology that was not available before now can help us solve things in an easier way, right?
Yeah, and also repurposing existing technologies for our own new purposes.
Exactly. No, this is a great call out. I love that. I'm going to check it out myself. Maybe I will scan my house and see, what I can learn about it. But thank you so much, Sadi. This is really interesting to learn about this synergy between architectural world and technology, and how technology create value to the architectural world, to the construction world. And I see why you're very excited about that. And it's really a great space to be. So where can people reach out to you?
Well, you can reach us at WZMH Architects on Instagram. And we also have our website, wzmharchitects.com. And we have a section for Sparkbird there as well. So yeah, social media or our website.
Perfect. And like I mentioned before, connect with Sadi, and I'm sure he will be happy to share a prototype of what they're working on. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So this is all for today. Thank you for joining us at Beyond Product, the podcast that we talk about technical products and the value that they're creating. We'll see you next time.